Are we live yet? Are we live yet? Are we live yet? You just really never know with these things, but I'm going to hit record and we'll dive in and then we'll probably hear me echoing through. All right, well, that's
live yet?
That's happening. So let me hit record and we'll dive in. Salutations from space and aloha from Earth, friends. This is Gemini Brett here with the Aries sun beaming from the west, making my face look just about as red as it is because I was in Mexico for the last couple of weeks. Was able to see the amazing happening of the equinox shadow serpent at the pyramid of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent at Chichen Itza. Amazing Mayan site where every equinox, and what these days we call March and September, the sun before it sets due west projects the corner of the stepped pyramid onto the ramp of stairs nearby, and you receive this amazing visual effect of a light serpent coming down and right into a stone serpent at the bottom of that pyramid. At some point here, I will put up a time lapse that I made and speak a bit more about that pyramid. It's incredible. It's actually a pyramid above another pyramid, which might be lunar because that one has 13 steps inside for the 13 moons of a lunar year. I kind of am afraid to open up that this portal right now, so let's just tuck that back in. And then 52 steps, which is a very key number in Mesoamerican calendrical systems, 52 being the calendar round. But the pyramid that's now been built outside, and perhaps you've seen it, the El Castillo, they call it the castle these days, but it was known as the Pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza. It really is a solar calendar. It's got, it's a four-sided pyramid with a ramp of stairs on each of the four sides, and each of those staircases with 91 stairs. So 91 times 4 is 364. And then you have the top step for 365. The days of the year. And around this very special time of the year, at equinox time, again, you receive the shadow serpent effect. It happens in March. It happens also in September, though that's the rainy season. So most go for March 21st, you know, the calendar equinox, or so they believe, but this year true calendar equinox, it's when the sun is due east of the center of the earth, was on the morning of March 20th in Chichen Itza. So I was there on the afternoon of the 19th and also the 18th before, because you never know about clouds, to see this shadow serpent, which has been on my list for a long time. And many see this time, this sun's Aries ingress, as the beginning of the year, right? January 1st is this weird thing because, you know, it's kind of arbitrary. It's not astronomical. I mean, it's different in London than it is here in California, for example. Whereas a solstice or an equinox event, it's a global happening. So I celebrate a new year at each of those significant happenings. And maybe the Aries equinox more so than any other. Why? I mean, astrologers often teach that we begin our year with sun moving into tropical Aries because this is the resurrection, when light overcomes night, right? Equinox time, 12 hours of day, 12 hours of night. Not really, because the sun's a disk, not a point. But even if it was, you know, it's a very northern hemispheric thing to say that we begin with Aries because it's the spring equinox and now lights and day is longer than night and darkness. That's not true in Brazil or Australia, right? We should be careful with that. Act locally, but think globally, right? In my work, I have decoded that the tropical zodiac is a directional mechanism. It is tied to Gaia's spine, the sword of our stone, also known as the world tree, our rotational axis, which leans in every moment forever north towards the cusp of tropical Gemini and Cancer. And as the Earth orbits the sun, every year that north pole of the Earth leans towards the sun at June solstice. This is autumn equinox. This is December solstice. Sorry, this is September equinox. Let's say Libra equinox. This is Capricorn solstice, when the south pole of the Earth is leaning towards the sun, currently played by my hand in our video model. And then this would be this Aries equinox. And very importantly, while there is no local, well, there is a local east and west, but it's different for every local place on the globe, right? Like right now, you can see the sun beaming into my eyes. That's my west here in California at this time. The sun set hours ago in Tulum, where I was just days before. Right. And their west is like literally a different place in the heavens than my west right now, and probably for you. But there is a global north and south, literally defined by Gaia's spine, by the world tree, by our rotational axis. It's not the magnetic north and south. That's a different trip. I'm talking about true north and south. It is world tree. It is rotational axis, Gaia's spine, the sword of our stone. And because Earth is leaning in her path, and because Earth is moving through space with the sun, with our whole solar system, there's also a global west and a global east from the center of Earth, which is actually where we measure astrology from. It's an amazing thing. We don't measure astrology from the surface of the Earth where we live and breathe and witness the heavenly happenings, and probably where you were born, but rather from the center of the Earth. And there's something beautiful about that. There's something so global about that, right? Because it's as if the celestial symphony, let's feel into the planets in that way, are playing this chord. And that resonates in the heart of our planet. And we're all dancing to that vibration, right? So just because you don't see it doesn't mean you don't be it. And just because I'm not sitting in a place of, global turmoil right now, and a lot of people are, doesn't mean that that's not also my experience as an earthling. Like, that's part of the weight of the internet and the speed with which news can spread these days. And it's also part of the confusion, right? And I think that's very alive for us right now, astrology or not, but we're probably going to see it in the chart. So this is a very special time. This is the first new moon after this astronomical new year. This happening once a year when the sun is east of the center of Earth. We can call that the global ascendant. That, by the way, is the reason why this idea of an astrological age, a precessional age, is a thing, because Earth has a global east, has a global ascendant. And it's why we hear things like Easter celebrated at the time when the sun is passing over Earth's equator towards the north. And that's a thing that I love to show astrologers in my sacred astronomy transmissions. But today, I think we'll just play with charts, and not for long either. Aries likes to commit to the cause and get the gig done. And we're going to play it that way. So it's not just the sun that is setting in the west in this moment. It is also the moon. They are traveling together, for it is that time of the month that we call new moon. This is the chart for when they will be new, 11:24:25 p.m. Pacific, March 31st, 2022, which means for most of the world, we have a April Fool's Day new moon. How about that? What do you do with that? Well, if you play with the cards like I do, we can all learn a good amount from the Fool. The Fool is not missionless, And, there's a thing that I remembered saying recently, or was reminded by a friend, which is, enlightenment is probably learning less, shedding some of these things that weigh us down. And I wonder what you're being weighed down by right now at this time in your life, and how that weight might inspire you to make some moves. You know, that's the thing for Aries. Like, what are you willing to commit to? Like, where will you go all in? What is your jam? What is your mountain to climb? And with this Aries new moon that's aligning, I'm just in the reporting to you from the very last hours of a Pisces month, and the Aries month is forming as the moon is aligning between Earth and Sun. It's a wonderful question to ask for this month to come. You know, what are you willing to give your energy to? So some really strong alignments in this chart and some significant things that will be happening in this month between this Aries new moon and the Taurus new moon, which is about 29 and a half days away. A lot of figures on this chart. I'm showing some of the principal asteroids and Aries. They don't always show up for me, and I'm not sure how much I will tune into them here, but the principal things that I want to point out are these. One, Mars and Saturn are about to conjoin. Now, in the traditional point of view, Aries is the home of Mars. And so we might be particularly interested in Mars this month and at the time of this new moon chart. So what is it to have Mars in Aquarius and keeping this interesting company, okay, Saturn there. And they're in a really interesting space of the zodiac. They're sharing space with the asteroid goddess Juno, who is often referenced as a symbol of relationship and commitment and love. Venus is not far away, as you can see, and they are square to the lunar nodes. So it's not my paradigm of practice, but in the very popular modern astrology paradigm called evolutionary astrology, planets that are square the lunar nodes are often seen as skipped steps on the evolutionary path. And, you know, what is it to have Mars there? What is it to have Saturn there? What is it to have Juno there? What is it to have Venus there? What about all of them together? So again, it's not necessarily the way that I personally pet the cosmic cat, but if I were to tune into that particular meow, I think I would hear something about the challenge of commitment to community. I recently kind of tuned into the weekly weather for next week, as I will be presenting the Astrological week for Astrology Hub coming up on Monday. And I was asked to kind of name the nature of the week, and it was this. It was individuate from hive mind, or innovate for your hive. And it's like a very important or. So I think that's a huge piece of this week. It's a huge piece of this month. It's like, do you dig your crew? Is it the right fit for you? I can't tell you how often I am speaking to fellow mystics and they're telling me there's no one around them that shares their interests, and they're all alone in this weird thing called love for astrology, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, it's weird. It's like, if I could just get you and you and you and you together, you will find that you have a community of people who love this thing. Actually, that's why I started my school, the School of Earth Astrology, which you can find out more about it at my website at geminibrett.com if you'd like. It's like, oh, let's just get all these people together and hang out and talk story. And we'll see that, yeah, we might be weird, but we're not alone. And there's people who really we vibe with, that we like to buzz with, like it's a good hive, you know? If you're stuck in a game whose rules do not work for you, this is a good time to get out of there and individuate. Go play a game that does work for you, right? If you're not surrounded by people with whom you can be yourself. Split. Hold on. I gotta get those things to stop buzzing. I think I could just do this. Maybe we'll do the trick. Yeah, I'm like, if you can't be you with the people that you're around, get around different people. So that's a huge piece of it. Yeah, I think in the last couple of years, there's been a great opportunity to see who resonates with you and who does not. We've been actually really encouraged to be in a space of like warfare and competition and setting people right. I mean, the thing that I've come to more and more is like, let's stop trying to get the other to see the light and learn to see the light in them. But at the same time, you know, if you are traveling with a crew that doesn't honor you or work for you, you're allowed to split. And many have been forced to or ostracized in strange ways. I mean, even from their families in these really strange days. And, you know, Aries does have that warrior vibe. I think most importantly, warrior is something to protect, something that is worth fighting for, and survival, an expression of self. And it's written all over this chart that if you are willing to show the world who you are, then the world that you want to be in will see you flying your flag and will come hollering. So for us to connect to our true community, for us to show spirit we're ready for that, we also have to show spirit we are willing to walk from a community that doesn't work for us. And I know a lot of the ears that are on this voice at this time are in a space like that because it has been written in the sky and it's certainly written on the news. Okay, good news. We see tension here. Mars and Saturn, by the way, were last conjoined a year ago today in the first degree of Aquarius, where Jupiter and Saturn were destined to meet on December 21st, 2020, to begin a new eon of great conjunctions, something that you astrology students will know much about. Others are like, what? But I need to leave that there for the sake of time. Just say it's been a very sensitive degree, this first degree of Aquarius, and it's exactly where, let's go prove this to be true, thanks to the amazing tool here of astrology software, this particular one, Astrological software. Here you go. So 1 month today, I mean, literally exactly, this new moon is at 11 degrees and 30 minutes Aries, March 31st, 2022. And I mean, calendar aside, it was 12 hours off. But, you know, there's this quarter of day thing. Look at where the sun is, 11 degrees and 30 minutes Aries. This is the last time that Mars and Saturn conjoined right here in the first degree of Aquarius. What was happening for you March 31st, 2020? Do you know that China is locked down right now? Do you know that it was recently whispered on our local news here that we should be prepared to pivot in and out of that kind of experience? How do you feel about that? Especially looking at some of the data and whatnot. And I'm going to try not to get too much more specific than that, because I would like for folks to be able to see this video and I would like to be able to participate still. But even that truth of like shutting myself down so that I can share has me, turning redder than this shirt. And well, making me wonder if I'm actually just yellow. So these are places where I imagine some of you, some of my peers have felt this kind of tension about, well, how much should I share an uncomfortable truth. You know, how much tension have you felt if your thought, your truth is not in line with, you know, the suggested hive mind, the demanded hive mind on the social media and in news? And this is a time for us to individuate from the hive that doesn't work. Or if you have found, and this will be true for many of us at this time, like really found and connected to your crew, it's a great time to innovate for that hive. So there's a story I told recently in the school. It's like this, okay. You know, Capricorn is like these traditions, we're keeping it real. And it's really the rules of the game. And if it's a good game, then Aquarius is the innovations of it. An example I love to use is chess. You know, chess has the bishop's move diagonally, and the queen can do what the queen wants, and the pawn moves 1 or 2 out the gate. You know, there's these rules, there's these basic rules of that wonderful game. And there have been these innovations. And I'm not like a chesser, like I love playing chess, but I don't know all the things. But folks that do know these moves that are like named after, you know, different Russians or Englishmen or, you know, whatever, that have like innovated the game. It's become like part of like chess culture. It's expanded this thing. I think that's like Aquarius playing well with Capricorn. It's like when we dig the rules, then yeah, then within that game, because all games, and perhaps this is one, demands rules, then let's innovate and expand there, right? When the game's not cool, the rules are whack, then we need to resist and rebel a bit. And that's like a different image of Aquarius, a little bit more of the Uranian image. But when? Because typically those innovations or even revolutions are the result of a loving heart. You know, I mean, oftentimes it's like, oh, these rules don't work because they're completely unfair. Right. And so Aquarius comes alive to set that thing straight. But, you know, here's the problem. And especially with Mars here, sometimes it's better to wait. Right. So if there's this thing you have to state, if there's a fight that's been brewing, like even that, like you might be able to get your point across or come to a better resolution without a fight if you just wait until the vibe is right. And this necessitates Pisces and intuition and empathy and being able to hear the other's heart. Now that first of all begins with the will to, and oftentimes the restriction of our tendencies that won't let us go there. It's a huge conversation I've been having with myself. Right, so we have to set that intention. But if we're there and if we're truly listening, then we will know when intuitively, naturally, then innovate. Because even if your innovations are here for the advancement of a game that you dig, or for, you know, the evolution of a community that you do vibe with, like you can't just go changing things without causing ripples. And sometimes it's, you know, as you know, the ripple that's necessary, but just wait. Because, you know, if you want to come in and challenge a game, you're challenging the game, right? And so innovation takes like selfness. It's a very beautiful and personal gift of a creation for the sake of a community typically, but the timing usually is not right away. And it's been building up. And I don't think, by the way, that it's not right now. I just want to tell you a story about where probably we're coming from that's led us to this moment. Okay, tension and release. I think that the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction that you see here, now they won't conjoin for a bit. Let me show you that. Let me first show you a couple of things. Here's the coming Mars-Saturn conjunction on Monday, April 4th, 2022. It's 6:51 p.m. Pacific, so it'll be April 5th for some of you. Take it easy that day. That morning, the moon in these earlier degrees with her node will kind of be shooting her ray between a rock and a hard place. And fortunately, Jupiter kind of alleviates that scene. I don't want to speak too much like traditional astrology language right now, but it's helpful that Jupiter's degree is between the degrees of Mars and Saturn a little earlier in that day when, well, really early AM hours here in the Pacific, when the moon's degree is between theirs. Like Jupiter is kind of doing the moon solid by breaking up some of the besiegement would be an old term. But it really kind of calls our attention to a theme that's part of this month ahead, where we have this tension of these Aquarius planets on the square to the lunar nodes, and South Node Scorpio, North Node Taurus. And then we have this resolution, the Jupiter Neptune trine to the South Node, sextile to the North Node. That's called a wedge. Later in the month, that's kind of one of my favorite times this month, is when the moon in the sign of Cancer will trine. Let me show you this one. Moon trine Jupiter. Like, that's a really good looking energetic, and really it's a full grand water trine with the South Node in Scorpio, Jupiter and Neptune and Pisces now in the same degree. That's called partile. And then the moon here, I picked the moon trine Jupiter. It's actually a full, what we call kite, with the North Node in Taurus. And we could even say stretching it out a bit, what's called a castle with Pluto here. And some of this reminds me to remember the gift of our senses, of our feelings, of our intuition. Like, there's a lot of mental energy at this time, and like will and fire. But there's also the reminder to cool out. So again, like, it's a time for action, but acting at the right time. And, the yes or the no is going to come from within for those who are willing to listen, like breathe, feel, and keep the faith, which has been very necessary, right? So faith is a great Pisces word, and things are building up there that seem great. I mean, you can see here Venus in Pisces. This is right now. And let me show you Venus's Pisces ingress. Venus is said, to be an honored guest in the sign of Pisces, that traditionally is said to be the home of Jupiter. Modern astrologers assign it to Neptune. And so you get the whole crew there. And later, like at the end of April, we'll have Venus conjoin Jupiter, Venus conjoin Neptune. The moon will be in the mix. Like Pisces, there's some serious Pisces faith, Pisces, empathy. And empathy doesn't come without its challenges. There'll be some Pisces problems too. Some, and that can come just from feeling the weight of the world. I want to give you one more date before I put this chart away, and we'll say there's a couple of things to close out. And that one that I'm really excited about is Mercury in Aries, sextile to Mars in Aquarius. And that date is April 8th at 11:18 a.m. Pacific. See Mercury at 25:11, sextile Mars at 25 Aquarius. This feels like you will be supported. We will be supported in saying what has to be said. And I like the moon's sextile with Uranus, with Taurus at the time. It feels to me that it's more likely to be received. So, astrology is a wonderful gift because it can help us like tune into some of these moments, right? All of this is going to have to do with how it plays in your chart. But from a global perspective, with the sun in his exalted degree, that's the 19th degree of Aries, with Mercury here, still combust, so close to the sun, but casting this ray to see Mars, who kind of teaches the way of Aries, and Mercury like being, I think, excited to speak truth. And unique individuals, say what you got to say, create what you got to create. That's what you are here for. And looking at that Cancer moon at the serious degree, it's this fun 1313. And in her, just kind of having come from seeing Venus and on her way to seeing the sun for the sprouting of this particular new moon that now forms, there's things here, I think, where we, if we choose to share our truth, will really stumble intentionally into an experience where we are connecting with our true crew. If that's something that's been needed for you, the way in is to share, speak, fly your flag. And that again says for me, like, individuate from hive mind. Like if you're in a mind or you're in a condition where you've been asked to not share yourself, and that's happening. I'm getting a million emails right now because somebody has duplicated my Instagram page. I'm not there much anyway. It's just unhealthy for me because I'm like pretty picture, so I don't post much at that place. But there's now a Gemini Brett with 3 T's, and requesting friends or following or however it goes, and then when people follow back or whatever, then Gemini Brett sends you this message that's like, can I offer you a reading or a cleanse, dear? With no question mark, which aggravates me more than anything. It's like, come on, if you're gonna be an imposter, some punctuation, please. But anyway, it's been reported a gazillion times by me, by all these people who are reporting it to me consistently, and nothing's happening. And I'm like a card-carrying Scorpio, so I see this as like a very intentional thing to basically kind of discredit the mystics over time. It's going to get to a place like, well, we had to yank your account too, because I don't know which one's the real one, you see. So time will tell. But it's just like it's happening to tons of astrologers, kind of tarot folks, mystics, maybe to you, since I know some of my peers tune in as I tune into your shares. And it's a drag, and sadly, it's, writing on the wall of a time to come, which we can keep at bay only if we say no, by like stepping away from a world whose rules don't fit the game we choose. And that again will allow us to step into a better game. So a lot of this really comes down to truth. And some of this Pisces energy in this chart is like, God, how do we know what we are hearing is true? But I just hope that, well, I'll say it this way. I find my crew by knowing they are ones who hesitate to just sign up for the meme of the day. Like the harsher version of the I guess the prayer of the week for me, or for this whole new moon, is take the me out of meme, which is like me, right? There's no me in meme. Actually, put the me back into meme. Me. Or just make it me, right? Just the group think, the hive mind, right? It's just so challenging to see, especially like, how many times do you need to be lied to? How many times do I need to be lied to before I will say, I'm not listening to those cats anymore? They do not tell the truth. But there's a whole piece of me that wants to stay informed, but where do I get the news, And folks that I like to tune into for an alternative view are just getting so suppressed. It's been a really important time to sign up for email lists. And by the way, I hope you'll sign up for mine. I don't send I will send this video out. It'll probably be a month since I last sent my last thing, which would have been Pisces new moon. I don't send too much email, but when these other places go away, like it used to be, I would go live on Facebook or whatever, and there'd be a lot of interaction. And now these days, I think like 10 people see it. And it might be because like my story's grown tiresome. Like I honor that potential, but I think it's probably more likely because I'm not paying for ads, and also because, some of the information I seek and share is deemed not okay, against the rules of a whack game. We used to speak a lot about sovereignty, and that nobody's said it yet out loud, but everybody has, like that it's now a bad word. What? Like independent research is bad. What? Right? So if you don't trust me, then you don't trust science. These things that we're hearing are terrifying. And right, so there's a couple bits that will awaken the like necessary Aries being at this time. Like, if you're not mad yet, what's it gonna take? And now don't go out acting on anger alone, but allow that to fuel a new fire of will that will help direct you to where you want to be and connect you with your crew. All right. If you're not confused, you're not actually listening. And sorry to make such like blanket statements today. And I know actually the folks that are listening here, you're probably with me. It's a confusing time. And so part of like the Pisces beauty is faith, empathy, feeling one another. But part of its challenges is like delusion and the opportunity to be manipulated, especially through the misdirection of collective compassion. That's just been the scene for the last couple of years, as far as I'm concerned, and it's really heating up right now. And so this is a month where we are being significantly fortified in the like opportunity to and the need to be me, for you to be you, right? Like it's not the individual versus the community. There's some quotes I could read you that it's just like there comes a time when somebody needs to put their own needs aside to honor the community. And on some level that's true. Where that's been shared from, absolutely not, in my point of view. But when you're with the right community, they don't want you to put yourself aside. They want you to bring you fully. And you want that from each person in this community. When we all show up as strong individuals, we make an amazing hive. Like that's the space that we are being led to if we are willing to speak a bit. And that's why I chose to put on the Wonder Bike shirt and speak a bit here today, even though you can hear the hesitancy and the restriction, not only because, I don't want to get memory hold, to use a wonderful term from one who called himself Orwell, but also because I want to speak things that can apply for folks no matter where you are. Or on, this is an interesting, which side of the thing you're on. Like, why do you have to be on some side of a thing? The world isn't that. That world that is being sold to us, that world that is being told should divide you from your children or from your parents, right? Like, that's not real. I want to share just one thing I saw recently that made me sick. And it was someone on a social media platform, like jubilant and so happy to share how, as a club owner, he's not going to let Russians play music there. He's sanctioning the Russians. It's like, what? Yo, the musicians, the artists, the poets, the jesters, like these are the ones who will speak truth when no one else will, because we're afraid of the law and the rules. Is it really you to be sanctioning anyone based upon, like, especially if your view is that the leader of that nation is terrible? Why would you punish the people, the artists? Like, are you insane? And my answer to that rhetorical question is absolutely yes. Like, there is this strange insanity that has spread in a hive that is not mine, and it is likely not yours. And I know this, cat, and it's really not theirs. But it's easy to want to fight for the right side. Yeah, and so we're hearing about all these crimes, and that's all right, but why throw stones? Like, unless you're willing to look at yourself or your team. And it's really time, I said this recently, like, take the jersey off and just be a loving human being. Get off of like a team that you were taught to just root for no matter what, and have a look at it. And then if it's your thing, like, get that jersey back on, put you in, coach, great, right? But there is a huge piece of us being reborn into who we came here to be that really necessitates an awakening into the paradigm that was painted prettily for us on some collective canvas probably isn't what we were told it was. And then as soon as, and it's painful, right, to awaken to, oh, have I been deceived? But then that opens the veil. It opens up so much more to see. Right? Like, why sanction a musician? Like, no, that's your crew. That's your community. Sanction the folks who are telling you to. Unless that's your hive and vibes well for you and you're digging it and you're meeting your people. Like, I will say this though, if your hive is promoting war, it's probably not yours, because you are a being of love and you're allowed to be that in an Aries move too. Anyway, hopefully these words have landed some. And I don't know, that unsubscribe button probably got hit a few times, but maybe the subscribe button got hit too. And I'm not counting anyway. I just want to be with my peeps. There's so many people I'm loving listening to. It's harder to access some of the information I love most. Some of you listening would probably belong to that category where it was easy for me before to hear your words, and now I have to do a little bit more work, and that's okay. Like, I'm willing to, like, this for me, it's work right now. I'm like, you can feel, I think, this like inner battle that's happening. But I'm really willing to do that and to see like what edge I can walk to, like, show myself, share myself in such a way that I can find the people that will let me be me and will show themselves, because as we show ourselves and we grow ourselves, and as we grow individually, then we will find our way into communities that together grow. So there you go. Happy new moon, everyone. I hope that you are staying alive and thriving in these strange times, and also that you're ready for some of the madness in the future, not only that in the past, and that you'll meet your neighbors and remember that love leads the way, because we're all going to have the opportunities more and more to look out for one another. And you can only look out for others if you are strong in yourself. It's a month for that. See you in space.